Hello, friends. How's your English today? Welcome back to Daily English Pod, where we learn English step by step. Today, we're going to talk about flavors and seasonings in English, and we'll show you some easy ways to use it in real life.
I'm really looking forward to this one.
Me too. So how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, thanks. Ready to get into it. It's such a fascinating topic.
It really is. And for you listening, we hope this is a fun one. We're going to take a deep dive into something we all experience every single day, but maybe don't think about too deeply.
Food, or more specifically, how we perceive it.
Exactly. Let's unpack this. When we talk about food, we usually just default to simple words, sweet, salty, sour.
Right, the basics.
But those 5 basic tastes, they're just the beginning of this magnificent and often, misunderstood symphony that we call flavor.
That's a great way to put it. A symphony. Because today, we are really undertaking a true deep dive into the architecture of taste and flavor perception.
Okay, the architecture. I like that.
Yeah, we're going beyond the basics. So past salt and pepper, we're going to explore a little bit of the neurobiology, the cultural history, and some of the surprising sensory tricks that determine whether we find something, delicious or just.
This is so crucial because our sources, and we've looked at everything from culinary science articles to historical anthropological texts, they make it really clear that flavor is not just happening on your tongue.
Not at all.
It's an intensely multi-sensory cognitive experience. So how are you feeling about deconstructing one of the most fundamental human experiences we have?
I'm ready. It's a huge topic, but what's so fascinating here is that even the most well-informed person often confuses taste and flavor.
Right.
So our mission today really is to clearly separate those two concepts, show the complex role of seasoning, and give you a really comprehensive understanding of why you crave what you crave.
Wonderful. Let's start right there then, with that essential distinction. We use the words taste and flavor interchangeably all the time, in casual conversation. But scientifically, they are profoundly different.
Profoundly.
So what is the core difference between the two?
Well, taste, to put it simply, is chemical detection, and it happens on the tongue. We all know the famous 5, right?
Sweet, sour, salty, bitter.
And the relatively new one, umami. The savory taste. These are detected by specialized receptors that are clustered in your taste buds. This is pure biological input. It's a pretty narrow stream of information, actually.
Okay, so if I close my eyes and I hold my nose, what I'm detecting is truly just taste.
Yeah.
A basic sensation.
Precisely. If you close off your nasal cavity, you strip away about 80% of what we perceive as flavor.
80%? Wow.
Yeah. Flavor, on the other hand, is the total impression. It's the combination of those 5 basic tastes, plus smell, which is olfaction,
Right.
plus texture, or what we call mouthfeel, temperature, and even pain. That's where chili heat comes in.
Here's where it gets really interesting then. That smell component. It isn't just sniffing the plate before you eat, is it?
No.
Our sources highlight this crucial distinction in how we smell food. We have, orthonasal olfaction?
Right. That's breathing in through the nose.
And then retronasal olfaction.
And retronasal olfaction is the real key to flavor complexity. When you chew your food, the volatile compounds, these are the tiny molecules that carry scent, they travel up the back of your throat and enter your nasal cavity from the inside.
From the inside, okay.
This is exactly why a cold often makes food seem bland. Or tasteless, even.
Right. I always thought it was my tongue that wasn't working.
And that's what everyone thinks.
Yeah.
But your taste buds are still working perfectly fine. It's the retronasal path that's blocked, and that shuts down the vast majority of your flavor information.
That really reframes the whole conversation. So when we talk about wanting a specific flavor, let's say blueberry, we're actually talking about these complex aromatic molecules hitting those retronasal receptors, combined with the primary taste of sweetness and, the texture of the fruit itself.
And this is why seasonings are so effective. Seasonings, especially aromatic spices, don't necessarily interact with the taste buds at all. They are primarily designed to generate those volatile compounds that enhance the retronasal experience.
Okay, but salt is the outlier there.
Yeah, salt is the big outlier. It's a pure taste amplifier.
Let's dive into that outlier, salt, because it's the undisputed king of seasoning, both historically and in the kitchen. When we say salt is an amplifier, what is the mechanism? Why does adding a pinch of salt to, say, a dessert suddenly make the chocolate taste richer instead of just tasting salty?
Yeah, that research is fascinating and it's still evolving. One of the primary mechanisms is suppression. Specifically, salt has been shown to suppress the perception of bitterness.
Okay, so it blocks bitter.
It dampens it. In a complex dish like a chocolate cake, the natural components like trace minerals or even the cocoa itself carry a slight bitterness. When salt is introduced, it selectively dampens that bitter signal, allowing the pleasurable sweet and aromatic signals to come forward and, dominate the profile.
So salt isn't just making things salty. It's actively refining the balance by muting unwanted background noise.
Mm.
It's like a sonic equalizer for the tongue.
Exactly. That's a perfect analogy. And on top of that, sodium ions themselves interact directly with ion channels on the taste buds, creating that distinct salty sensation which, in moderation, is essential for identifying palatable, nutritious food.
And historically, this taste was vital, right? It signaled necessary minerals.
Absolutely. Thinking historically, our sources confirm that salt wasn't just a flavor enhancer. I mean, it was the foundation of entire economies and trade routes. It was one of the earliest known preservatives.
Of course, before refrigeration.
It was everything. Controlling moisture was the key to preservation, and salt is a powerful desiccant. It pulls out water. The ability to salt cure meat and fish allowed cultures to stockpile resources, which then fueled exploration and military campaigns.
The word salary even comes from salt, doesn't it?
It does. It comes from the Latin word salarium, which referred to the Roman soldier's payment that was often rendered in salt, or money to buy salt. The seasoning was literally currency.
That's incredible. It connects the utility of the seasoning directly to societal structure. It wasn't about deliciousness at first. It was about survival and trade.
Right.
But if we fast forward to the modern kitchen, the conversation around seasoning immediately expands far beyond just sodium chloride. We move into the realm of true spices and aromatics.
Which brings us right back to those volatile compounds and retronasal olfaction. When we talk about using black pepper or garlic or cinnamon, we're introducing highly complex mixtures of molecules that contribute these powerful aromas.
Okay, so let's take black pepper as an example. Its primary active compound is piperine.
Piperine, yeah.
And piperine gives pepper its bite, that sharp sensation. But is that considered a taste?
No, and this is where it gets even more complex. The fifth cranial nerve, the trigeminal nerve, comes into play here.
The trigeminal nerve.
It controls sensation in the face, including your oral and nasal cavities. So the heat from capsaicin in chili peppers, or the sharpness from piperine, or even the cooling sensation of menthol, none of those are tastes.
So what are they?
They're chemically induced pain, or temperature, or tactile sensations that are interpreted by the trigeminal system.
So when someone says they like spicy food, they are not describing a taste preference, but a tolerance and maybe a preference for a controlled burn sensation.
Precisely. It's an interactive element of flavor. It adds intensity, and sometimes it even distracts from less desirable flavors.
And a great deep dive insight here is how crucial that trigeminal nerve is to texture. I mean, think about the carbonation in soda.
The fizz.
Or the crunch of a chip, or that astringency of tea, the way it makes your mouth feel dry.
That's tannins. Yeah, those texture inputs are integrated by the brain alongside taste and smell to form the complete flavor profile.
So a chef isn't just seasoning for taste. They're seasoning for a full physiological experience. They're managing sweetness, suppressing bitterness, and activating the trigeminal system for bite and texture.
And that holistic approach is exactly why certain regions develop these complex spice blends instead of just relying on single ingredients. If you consider the evolution of seasoning techniques globally, in, say, Western cooking, earthiness from cumin and coriander, and then a slight lift or brightness from something like cardamom. The synergistic effect of these volatile compounds, especially when you toast and combine them, creates a flavor signature that is so much more complex than the sum of its parts.
That's a powerful concept. The flavor matrix. It highlights the difference between merely seasoning something, like just adding salt, and truly flavoring it, building a complex aromatic profile.
Right.
The complexity protects the cook, in a way, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
If one element is slightly off, the strength of the whole matrix can carry the dish.
And these flavor matrices often tell a story about history and trade. The composition of a classic spice blend in India might involve nutmeg from Indonesia, black pepper, which is indigenous to the subcontinent, and maybe saffron cultivated in the Middle East. It's a literal map of centuries of global exchange right on your plate.
Let's zoom back in on the 5 primary tastes for a moment and specifically focus on umami, because it's the one that often confuses people the most and it's highly dependent on seasoning practices.
Umami. It was only officially recognized in the early 2000s, I think, even though the concept has been used in Asian cooking for centuries.
So what is it exactly?
Umami is, well, it's the definition of savory deliciousness. It's triggered primarily by glutamate, which is an amino acid, and it's often associated with fermented, aged, or slow-cooked foods. Think Parmesan cheese, aged soy sauce, dried mushrooms, or cured meats.
So how do we typically use seasoning to enhance umami?
Well, we often use ingredients that are rich in glutamates as seasonings themselves, things like fish sauce, miso, or tomato paste.
Okay.
But the key nugget of knowledge here is the concept of synergy. Umami becomes exponentially stronger when glutamate is paired with specific ribonucleotides, like inosinates, which are found in meat and fish,
Hmm.
or granulidase, which you find in dried mushrooms.
So the reason that chicken soup or a traditional ramen broth tastes so deep and complex isn't just because of slow simmering. It's because the cook is stacking these umami
Yeah,
components.
you've got it.
So for example, dried mushrooms, the guanylate, and the meat stock, the inosnate, they're working together with the glutamate that's already there.
Right. It's one reason why a simple addition of Parmesan to a dish instantly makes it taste more satisfying, or why a dash of soy sauce works wonders in a meat marinade. It's flavor chemistry in action. The seasoning is providing an essential cofactor to maximize the savory signal that's hitting the taste receptors.
This moves us into a deeper discussion of the psychology of flavor then. It's not just about what our bodies detect, it's about what our brains expect and what they remember.
hmm
Our sources on food psychology point to this concept of flavor nutrient learning.
Yes, and this is where flava crosses over into appetite and memory. Flavor nutrient learning is, at its core, a survival mechanism. If you eat something with a distinct flavor and it provides good energy or nutrition, your brain unconsciously establishes a positive association between that specific flavor profile and satisfaction.
And the next time you encounter that flavor, your brain preemptively signals pleasure and satiety.
Exactly. This mechanism also explains acquired tastes.
Okay, like coffee.
Like coffee. Take bitter flavors. Historically, bitter often signaled poison or danger. But we learn to enjoy the bitterness in coffee or beer or dark chocolate because we pair that initial sensory input with highly rewarding elements, caffeine, alcohol, or sugar. The flavor acts as a learned cue.
It's fascinating that our appreciation of food is built on these complex, conditioned associations.
It really is. Think about the flavor profile of mint. In toothpaste, we associate it with cleanliness. In ice cream, we associate it with sweetness and dessert. The exact same aromatic compound triggers completely different expectations based entirely on context.
And seasonality must play a huge role in this flavor conditioning. When we eat a fresh tomato in the middle of summer, the high concentration of sugars and acids creates a specific flavor profile that's just inextricably linked to the heat of July.
Right.
If we eat a greenhouse tomato in December, even if it's chemically similar, the flavor feels wrong because the context doesn't match the historical memory in our brain.
That mismatch is the cognitive element of flavor. A chef who understands this isn't just cooking ingredients. They are curating a memory, reinforcing a positive expectation.
Which is why sourcing high-quality seasonal ingredients is so important for flavor optimization.
It's non-negotiable. When the volatile compounds are naturally at their peak, the brain's reward system activates more effectively.
Let's focus more on the tangible tools of the trade, the actual application of seasonings. We've covered salt and pepper, the basics, but let's look at the complexity of using acids and fats as seasonings, because they are just as crucial even if we don't always categorize them as spices.
Absolutely. Acids, so vinegar, citrus juices, are essential flavor tools. They directly stimulate the sour receptors, which provides contrast and lift to a dish.
Lift, I like that word.
Yeah, in a rich, heavy meal, a splash of lemon juice cuts through the fat and resets the palate, preventing what we call flavor fatigue.
And that is so often the difference between a good dish and a great dish.
Yeah.
Balance. Too much richness, too much sweetness, or too much salt can just overwhelm the system. Acidity provides that necessary counterpoint.
Think of it as sensory architecture. If sweetness is the foundation and salt is the framework, acidity is the light. It brightens the whole structure. And then you have fat, which is perhaps the most critical component for flavor delivery.
Okay, we know fat provides a texture we enjoy, that creamy, unctuous mouthfeel. But how does it interact with the flavor molecules themselves?
Fats are flavor carriers. Many of these aromatic compounds, the volatile molecules we've been talking about, are fat soluble. That means they dissolve readily in fat but not in water.
I see.
So when a dish has an appropriate fat content, the flavors are efficiently distributed, they coat the mouth, and they ensure that aromatic molecules reach the retronasal pathway consistently over time.
This explains why toasted spices bloom better when they are briefly cooked in oil or butter before being added to a liquid base. You're dissolving and maximizing the flavor delivery system.
Exactly. You're increasing the bioavailability, essentially. If you try to saute garlic and onions in a water-based liquid, you get a muted, sort of boiled flavor.
Right.
But if you use butter or olive oil, the fat dissolves the aromatic compounds in the alliums, maximizing their impact and distributing that flavor evenly throughout the whole dish.
So the quality of your cooking oil is functionally as important as the quality of your salt or pepper when we talk about total flavor construction.
Absolutely. And this concept extends to infusions using spices or aromatics to flavor fats. Think about chili oil or infusing rosemary into butter. You are using the fat as a vessel to capture and deliver those volatile compounds in the best way possible.
Okay, let's step back and look at a challenging flavor profile. Bitter. While we know salt suppresses bitterness, how do chefs manage bitterness in ingredients where it is intrinsic and, actually desired, like espresso or olives or beer?
In those instances, the chef or the brewer is usually balancing the bitterness with two other elements: fat and texture, and sugar or sweetness. Bitterness is a very powerful signal, so it requires a strong counterlever.
Like how a splash of cream or milk mellows the bitterness of coffee.
That's the fat and texture mitigation. The fat physically coats the bitter receptors, dampening the signal.
Or a creamy cheese pairing softens a bitter arugula salad.
Exactly. And for pure balance, sugar is often employed. Think about tonic water. The bitterness of the quinine is balanced by a high sugar content. If you stripped away the sugar, the drink would be overwhelmingly, maybe unpalatably, bitter.
So bitterness acts as a structural element, but it rarely stands alone in popular cuisine.
Very rarely.
This whole deep dive really emphasizes that excellent cooking isn't just intuition, it's applied chemistry and sensory science. You're manipulating chemical signals, sweetness, acidity, umami, while simultaneously managing sensory physics, texture, heat, and aroma delivery via fat.
And it's driven by cultural history. Our sources show a clear split in how different cultures approach seasoning. Cultures where meat preservation was paramount, like in ancient Europe, prioritized salt, smoke, and vinegar.
Right, for preservation.
Meanwhile, cultures in warmer climates, particularly those around the equator, often developed spice mixes rich in antimicrobial compounds. Things like allicin from garlic and onion, and capsaicin from chili, as both flavor and as a practical preservation aid.
That's a fascinating link. So the spice trade wasn't just driven by a desire for exotic flavors. It was rooted in necessity and the ability to safely preserve food in hot environments. The complexity evolved out of practical chemistry.
The practical often dictates the pleasurable. The seasoning choices we make today are echoes of ancient survival mechanisms. We enjoy the flavor of garlic and chili partly because our evolutionary history suggests that these strongly flavored plants, which often deterred pests, were safer for us to consume.
So let's consider the modern frontier of flavor, molecular gastronomy, and the deconstruction of traditional flavor profiles. How do these modern techniques like spherification or using hydrocolloids contribute to seasoning and flavor?
They primarily play with texture and delivery. If we've established that flavor is an illusion created by the brain integrating multiple signals, then molecular gastronomy simply manipulates the texture and the timing of those signals.
I see.
Spherification, for instance, turns a liquid seasoning like balsamic vinegar or a strongly flavored broth into a tiny bursting sphere.
Meaning you get a sudden, intense burst of the flavor and acidity delivered all at once, rather than it gradually mixing with the food. It's a precise control over the timing of the flavor input.
Exactly. It uses texture as a shock factor to heighten flavor perception. It's seasoning achieved through physical form, leveraging the trigeminal system to create a pop that enhances the primary taste elements.
It really underscores the point that seasoning goes far beyond pouring powder from a jar. It involves temperature, hydration, texture, and aroma delivery.
Oh,
And speaking of delivery, what about the importance of heating spices correctly? You mentioned earlier that fats help release volatile compounds. What happens if you skip that step?
you end up with raw, underdeveloped flavors. Many spices, like cinnamon, star anise, or coriander seed, contain compounds that are tightly bound within the cellular structure. They need heat, either dry heat from toasting or heat and fat from blooming, to break down the cell walls and release those aromatic volatile oils.
So if you add raw coriander seed powder, directly into a simmering sauce.
You get a dusty, raw flavor. The true, complex citrus and earthy notes never fully emerge.
That's the difference between merely adding an ingredient and activating the seasoning.
That's it. Toasting, for example, is also a controlled process of caramelization and browning, the Maillard reaction, which generates hundreds of new flavor compounds that aren't present in the raw spice. It dramatically deepens the aromatic profile. This is foundational for any serious cook.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener? If you want to be truly well-informed about the food you eat and the food you cook, what is the single most actionable piece of knowledge about seasoning?
I think it comes down to intent and multisensory consideration.
Yeah.
Stop thinking of seasoning as an afterthought, a dash of salt at the end.
Mm-hmm.
Start thinking of seasoning as building blocks for the brain. Always ask yourself, am I providing the necessary umami? Am I using acid to balance the fat? Am I activating my aromatics correctly with heat? And most importantly, have I introduced the right amount of salt early enough to suppress bitterness and amplify the desirable sweet and savorination?
That requires a level of thoughtfulness that moves cooking from just following a recipe to true flavor engineering.
Yes.
When you consider that flavor is fundamentally a subjective illusion created by the brain synthesizing all these diverse signals, the act of seasoning becomes less about rules and more about manipulating expectation.
It makes the process of flavor discovery lifelong, too. Even familiar ingredients hold so much complexity. Take vanilla, for instance. We associate it with sweetness, but the pure vanillin molecule is an incredibly complex aromatic compound that requires meticulous curing to generate hundreds of subnotes.
Which is why real vanilla is so much more effective than artificial vanilla extract.
Exactly. The seasoning tells the story of its preparation.
This has been such a deep dive into the true nature of flavor. We've moved past the tongue and into the brain, the nose, and the nervous system. We covered the chemical suppression power of salt, the history embedded in spice blends, the sensory shock of the trigeminal nerve, and the psychological impact of flavor-nutrient learning.
It truly shows that the best cooks are essentially applied neuroscientists.
Absolutely. And that leads us to our final provocative thought for you to chew on. If flavor is so dependent on expectation, memory, and context, how much of what you deem delicious is a function of the meal itself? And how much is merely the cognitive association you've built around that experience?
Is your favorite food really your favorite taste, or is it your favorite memory?
Something to mull over the next time you season a dish. We are wrapping up our deep dive into the complex world of flavors and seasonings today. We covered so much, from the science of retronasal olfaction to the history of salt trade routes.
We really hope you walk away with a richer understanding of why your food tastes the way it does.
Before we go, we encourage you to use this new knowledge. Think about the last dish you cooked. Can you identify the 3 primary flavor components you added beyond just salt and pepper? Was it acid? Was it umami? Was it texture?
Yeah, try to articulate your cooking process using this more technical language.
Understanding the why makes cooking so much more engaging.
Keep exploring those flavor matrices.
Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive. We really appreciate you spending this time with us to deepen your understanding of the world. And remember, the path to being well-informed is consistent curiosity.
Stay curious and keep applying what you learn.
Keep seeking out those nuggets of knowledge. My colleague and I will be back soon for more deep dives into complex topics. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this deep dive with others if you found this exploration of flavor science useful.
It helps us a lot.
That's all for today. Goodbye, everyone.
Goodbye, listeners.
Talk to you soon.
Bye for now.